To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4 to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
So hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall, and I have MVP from World Cup. One of the MVPs, we had co-MVPs for the first time ever, Marcello Margott, coming off an insane year, 2 performances in a row, 2 wins in a row, 2 World Cups in a row. Host of the Play the Game podcast. The accolades continue, Marcello. We got a lot to get into here. Also, some not really news to break, but news to discuss as Dynasty's going to JT. You guys picked up some young talent. Also, who knows what else is going to be happening? It's crazy offseason. Without any further ado, how the hell are you doing, Mr. MVP?
Oh, fantastic, man. And I assume everybody saw the same commercials that I was watching, waiting for us to go live. I have the chills. I want to start playing right now. Again, not playing. I mean, I played last weekend, but I want to start competing again. That I believe that's the 4 Sundays trailer. It looks epic, dude. I love it.
First time anyone's heard it, first time anyone's seen it. That was the debut of the trailer. So, to be honest, I hadn't even seen it yet.
When's it come out?
So, the first episode will be dropping towards the either end of next week or the beginning of the week after that. So, we don't have the exact release date, but it will be December 16th. Yeah. So,
okay.
So stick around for that. And such a fascinating story this year. You know, I mean, maybe we could just kind of start with, you know, maybe your feel on this kind of crazy past 2 seasons we had. So, you know, COVID 2020, we only had 2 events. You guys win the World Cup, you know, and we had discussed this. I talked to this about Ryan, fans, whatever, all the different people. But, you know, it was kind of like some people, and including you guys, were like, well, maybe there's a little bit of an asterisk on that World Cup. 2 events only. A lot of guys weren't there. How's Dynasty going to look in the year? And this is why I'm not deep in this right now, but, you know, kind of taking all of this, the big overarching meta, crazy, big ass story, and then kind of splicing that up to tell the story of just 4 separate days, 4 episodes. There's 10 teams per day, obviously, you know, but that to me is like, that's to me, people ask like, well, look, you still love watching this game. I'm like, hell yeah. But I particularly love watching Sunday Paintball, because to me, that's like every single time you're reading a new novel or you're watching a new movie, but Sunday is that last act. You know, it's the ultimate moment, and you get to see all these stories play out. So we go into 2020 and then 2021. So maybe if like we could just kind of start with, you know, now you're at the end of the year and you guys are triumphant, series champs, World Cup champs 2 years in a row. But the season did start out a little crazy for you guys, you know, and you came off that high of the World Cup win, but then we head into 2020, and that's, you know, kind of when I'm looking at my notes for first episode of 4 Sundays, I'm like, Impact looked masterful. Damage, you know, one of their best, basically the best event they had, you know, blah, blah, blah. Infamous looked strong. Dynasty really, really struggled, ... You know, and it's just, you guys didn't really get off to the best start.
Yeah, I mean, Matty, I think I've talked about this on on our show a bit, and you know, going into that first event, it's so easy. It's so easy to look at Dynasty and say they got 10th place. That was a horrible performance. But I remember my conversation with the team after you know, our loss to X Factor Sunday, which was by a point in overtime. Right? I still firmly believe if we were to win that game, we go on and we have a really good chance of beating Impact. Our team feels good playing against Impact. Impact is one of the best teams in the business, but I feel like our team has gotten the confidence to do that. So, you know, it's a 1 point difference. Now the prelims is where it was like, what's going on with Dynasty? Because the first day we kind of imploded. Right. And you know, there was some major issues. But you got to keep in mind, there was a lot of stuff going on. And even guys on my own team, I don't think have addressed it in this fashion. And it's not about making excuses. It's about understanding. And so for me, you know, we had a coaching change about 3 weeks before the first event. You know, unfortunately, Rusty wasn't able to continue. I know he had every intention to continue to be our coach after the World Cup finish. And I think things just didn't line up for that to work out. So we bring in a new coach. Ryan ends up hurting his back after the practice. You know, Ryan is a core member of the team. It's Ryan Greenspan. He's one of the best players in the world. On any given Sunday, he's going to be the best player. So we had a lot of things, a lot of shifting and things to figure out going into that event. You know, we showed up at that practice, the Thursday practice, like, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on, you know? We didn't totally know how we wanted to play the field. We weren't sure on so many different things. And so we had two tough games, tough losses, right? Aftermath and Thunder, teams that on paper we should beat. We have the experience, we have the talent, but we didn't. And everybody goes into this panic mode of what's wrong with Dynasty. And understandably so. I get that. If you win the World Cup, you need to come in and be able to make a statement in the first event. And
well, apparently you don't have to.
Well,
and everything
yeah,
can
you know,
totally
you can
fine.
sort things out. It's a long year. It's a long year. But my point is, you know, we were able to figure out what was going wrong. We turn things around. We make it into Sunday. And we do lose in the first round, but it's the X Factor. I mean, X Factor is no slouch. They've been in the finals 3 of the last 5 events. X Factor is one of the best organizations to ever be part of paintball. And we lose by 1 point to them in overtime. That game can go either way. You know, in overtime, Archie shoots me on a damn bounce shot, back center to back center, that we were both like trying to do the whole match to each other. And it just wasn't working. Like, it wasn't a great bounce shot. We were, you know, it's one of those things, you're in there watching it and you're like, this isn't coming in. I don't need to defend myself from it. And then in overtime, the most important point of the whole event, this ball flies up to Saturn and then down on my goggles. Like, it literally landed on top of me. Like, oh, okay, you got me. And then, you know, there was other mistakes in that point that cost us to lose the match. But it's a 1 point game against X Factor on Sunday. Whereas if we win that, I think the team then has confidence to, who knows, you know, then maybe we win our next couple matches and win that event too. I don't know. You can't say, but
that's not what happened. And, you know,
of
and
course,
Archie did shoot you on that bounce shot. But it just, my point is, again, but it's like, it just, Dynasty always, I mean, World Cup 2020 was dramatic. You know, it's Dynasty loves to make it super dramatic. It's, yeah.
Yeah, no, real quick. 'Cause my point isn't to deflect like those things happening. My point is to recognize, okay, there's times when you lose as a team and you say, fuck, we have a lot to work on. We're really far behind. We're not good enough. There's times when you lose as an organization, as a team, or as an individual, and you realize I wasn't ready for that battle. I didn't feel that was the case. That's my point. And it was portrayed as that was the case. It's more, sometimes you lose and it's like, hey, you know what? We won. Yeah, we struggled in the prelims. I think we figured stuff out. We lose, and it's more of, it didn't go our way that time, and a few mistakes. There was a few small mistakes, which is what happens on Sunday. But in my mind, it wasn't as bad as everybody was making it out to seem. I remember in my speech to the team, I was like, guys, we should be really proud of what we didn't have Dalton as well. Dalton wasn't able to make that event. You know, we had to bring Grayson in kind of last minute. He really stepped up in that event for us. We had a lot of moving stuff, and for the team to still do that, I perceived it as a major positive. I was like, guys, we had so many changes. Like, look at all the bright spots that we just had, and we honestly, in my mind, we were still really close to going deep in the tournament. You know, overtime point against X Factor. Like, hey, I'll take that in that moment.
And that's why you're you, and you're definitely super positive, and I love that about you. But from an outside perspective, you know, it's like seeing how things were going towards the offseason. It was like, all right, you know, I remember, you know, Ryan and I and the kids with the fam were out looking at the lights and everything, and I'm like, this is, you know, 3 weeks after the World Cup, and just riding that World Cup high victory. Who knows what's going to happen in 2020? And I'm like, 2020. I'm like, no, we're bullshitting about, you know, talking shop a little bit. How's the team look? You know, and Spica was there too. So it's not like there's any secrets. It's like the three of us, you know, we're just like kind of just openly talking about stuff. And we're like, how's Impact? Kyle, how's everything looking for you guys? And he's like, oh, working on so-and-so and so-and-so maybe. And then I'm like, what about you, Ryan? And he's like, I don't know, man. We'd have to cut someone to pick anybody up right now. And everything's just looking so good. I mean, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, you're right, brother. Everything does look great. You know, I mean, if you can keep the same crew together, and then it's like, and then, you know, all of a sudden shit just kind of hit the fan a little bit. Like you said, you lose Rusty. You got, you know, Ryan, his back's hurt. You know, no Dalton. All of a sudden shit's starting to fall apart a little bit. You know, I mean, behind the scenes, and then you show up and you lose your first two games. So yeah, you guys definitely only lost X Factor in overtime on a bullshit bounce shot. But as
No.
Event,
whoa. Hey,
I'm just saying,
I gotta stop
crazy.
you right there. No.
Okay,
I gotta stop you right
there. I'm
there.
not saying
Matty.
that's why you lost.
No. That's no. But that can't be the narrative, because that's not even at all what I'm saying. Yeah, no.
I don't. I understand that's not the narrative. Yeah, I was giving you a little credit. I'm just saying, but it did kind of come down. Right, that's obviously not. That was, look. There's a lot going on.
But two things.
But that did happen. Yes.
But two things. I don't consider any bounce shot bullshit. I think bounce shots are one of the most crucial parts of the game, and I play them religiously. We can get into that big time. I'm like,
no, we don't.
Huge advocate of.
I know your position,
but it's only because they're part of the game, right? It's only because they're part of the game. If they weren't part of the game, I wouldn't care. But they're such a big part of the game. So no, I'm like, please, it would really bother me for it to appear as if I'm saying, oh, we only lost because of like a lucky bounce shot. That's not what I'm saying at all. We were both trying to do that all game. And I was like, I was super upset with myself that's how I got shot in the overtime point, the most important point. And good on Archie, good on their team for knowing that and doing that. And we both knew it, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to him. We were trying the same thing to each other, and I wasn't able to execute it, and he was. But that wasn't the only reason. We still had a chance to win that point. You know, other stuff had gone wrong as well. So sorry, Matty. I have to make that very clear, because I can't stand when people whine about why they lost and they say, oh, it was just this, and you brush it off. Like, that's not my intention with that conversation, right? It's more of, it wasn't as doom and gloom as I felt the rest of the world made it out to be. I was still really happy with where our team was in regards to how we can move forward for the rest of the season and ultimately win the World Cup and the championship and do everything the team did go on to do.
Yeah, which, I mean, again, dude, just as a fan and as somebody that watches this pretty religiously, it just made it super dramatic, because if you guys had a more consistent placing, it would have made the series title race not as fun to watch either, because there were three teams that if you win the World Cup, then you win the series regardless of what the other teams do. And then there was some other fuzzy math to add some other stuff in, but so that was kind of interesting on many different levels. And it just, Dynasty, I've always joked with Ryan about this, and Alex and Yosh, but Dynasty loves to make it dramatic. I mean, you go all the way back to the very first World Cup win they had with the, Aftershock and Brad hanging the flag. And then it was this crazy argument. And then Aftershock wanted to beat everybody up afterwards. And it was just, it's literally boom.
Didn't Dynasty pay the refs?
Dynasty is
Didn't
here.
Dynasty pay the refs to get that win?
Bro, that's what I heard too. I mean, I can't neither confirm nor deny those rumors, but I mean, that is a little bit of the word going around the campfire from back in the day. No, it's just
that one doesn't count, Ryan. That one doesn't count.
That one was a little crazy. I was there to watch that go down. It was a little crazy, but it made it really interesting. But then after that, it was kind of the picture of consistency for you guys. I do kind of want to. I feel like we should, because I want to bring this up. We could talk about it as much as you want. But it's like you've been kind of, I wouldn't say pigeonholed, but you have developed into this incredibly crucially important role player where you play, a second or a third position. And Ryan kind of plays a similar position sometimes, but a lot of times, you guys are in really bad spots. You're playing the bunker of death or the trash can or whatever we're calling the, really terrible spot where it's really hard to play out of. And you have to, be really wary about it. It's two different down shots, but you have to be gunfight dominant and you have to watch a lane and you have to be able to get out of there and fill out, all while playing this really treacherous position. So you've been in that spot quite a bit. And then we head into, a moment where just based on how things ended up working out, the layout, personnel, you ended up playing as essentially the first attacker, the main attacker on the D side for World Cup. So, but this is kind of a role that I just wonder how this all went down, because, we had talked a little bit about this, and I said, look, dude, I think you're doing really good. You're a really good job in this, in this role that you are kind of forced to play, because not a lot of people can be in that position and thrive. There's really a handful of people in the league, period. And there's only essentially two dudes that can do it really well in Dynasty. It's either you or Ryan. And I thought you had done it admirably, and you had kind of been like, look, I just feel that I could be doing more. I can be more offensive. And, we've had this like offensive versus defensive conversation, you and I, on and off camera for ever, essentially, since you kind of went into that role. So I just kind of wanted to open up the floodgates a little bit and kind of see where your head was at, because it ended up working out so good for you. So what's crazy though, is that now when Quinn and I are going to be talking about, the iconic defensive player of the year, I'm like, well, I don't know. Can we include Marcello in there anymore? He did play as the first attacker on the D side and won the MVP at World Cup. So, I don't know. Is he defensive player still? I mean, are we going to see Marcello play as the one in 2022? I don't know. I know I'm kind of joking. You're still probably going to be in there, but I just wanted to open up the floodgates a little bit and have this conversation with you, because I feel like positionally speaking, this is something that a ton of players constantly have to deal with. There's a lot of people that are in whatever role it may be. They're in this like transition period. Either they're a younger guy getting a little bit older and moving to the two, a guy that plays the two that feels like he could play the one because he'd be more effective there. Sometimes, obviously, you can do both. I don't know. I feel like this is a conversation we could have, because I feel like a lot of people might be in that same headspace.
Yeah, Matty, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm actually not quite sure exactly what the question is, but to kind of
there isn't a question. It's kind of just like a general conversation piece.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's important, but it's something that I have, in my opinion, in my headspace, at least in my intention of how I've always approached the game, is to understand and be able to play every position. I have never, in my career of paintball, wanted to say or felt that I am a snake player or a Dorito player or a 2 or a 1 or a 3. You could go back on all the different teams that I've played on. I've played literally every single spot. And I think that's a unique thing about the game, is that's what really creates the high level players. You get so used to seeing a player like Mouse in the snake and only in the snake. But I promise you, Mouse can play the 2, the 3, the 1 on the Dorito side and the 2 on the Dorito side better than probably 90% of the league. That's the type of player he is. Now he can play the snake better than 99% of the league. So that's why he's in the snake all the time, and that makes sense. But the top level players, you look at someone like Archie. Archie can play all over the field. I guess the only place we don't really see him is the one on the snake side, but he plays every other position. He's somebody that can play all the spots. Those are, again, Oliver. You look at Oliver, he had a career as, I don't know what you would say about Oliver. He was the one on the snake side. Then he was the middle guy. Then he was the back guy with 14 pods, one event, just because he wanted to prove a point and show that he could go to a spot and shoot a lane and make sure nobody could come down one side of the field. He's done all of it, right? So like the top players in the game, they just understand paintball. And that is ultimately what it comes down to, is understanding the game. So when I coach teams, when I practice, when I do anything related to the game, it's about understanding what needs to happen on the field for the entirety of the team, the players. It's not about, here's my position, here's what I want to do. It's that this helps with communication. It helps with teamwork. It helps with so much, which is, a reason I think I'm a good communicator is because I think about what the other positions on my team should be doing based on our game plan, based on the situation, based on what our intention of that point is, right? So if we lose somebody that's in a role, I can communicate that to another player, or I can take that over. It depends. If I'm the one to take it over, I understand, hey, we lost this zone. My zone's not as important. I can take that over, or I can reposition to take it over because we're playing against Houston Heat and Chad George is about to get into the snake. Got to shut him down. Or Fedorov is about to go down the Dorito side. So it's more important to go that way. Like, these are all things that come into play when you're trying to compete at a high level. And as far as positions, which is, I think was the floodgates you're trying to open, right? Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, definitely.
Like,
we're we're talking about positions. I have a couple specific questions I'd like to ask you, but yeah, absolutely, dude. You're hitting the nail on the head here. When you are looking at the positions, ideally you could play them all, but just to kind of maybe throw a little something back at you, that's not everyone's reality. And a lot of times you either have a guy that's not mobile enough. If like guys you would teach in clinic to, guys you'd be coaching on the divisional level, people coming up. Yeah, if you're trying to be a badass pro, you want to be elite, one of the best in the game. I hope you can play a lot of different positions. It'll make you more versatile, make your team a little harder to scout. But also, it's like, look at Urena. Urena shined at Sacramento by playing out of position, even though he's your, the wrecking ball and the snake. And then now you have Blake, who's really evolving into an elite threat because he's also very diverse. He also played more of a 2 or 3 in Sacramento and was elite, looking, a smaller field, but still was absolutely amazing. Co-MVP at World Cup. Dynamite. And so you see it. But you do, so you do have guys that. And also, you could probably say, if you want to make it to be pro, maybe you should be a niche guy. Let's have that conversation real quick before we kind of go into maybe more specific stuff for you. And because it's like, hey, we're looking for guys on a pro team or a divisional team. Like, we need a badass dude in the snake that's going to go in there, be a Mike Urena. Go do battle, fix a bayonet, and be a soldier for us. We need that guy. Right. Every team needs that guy. Yeah.
So let me kind of clarify, or maybe even reposition a little bit what I was saying there. It's one thing to be able to play all the positions, right? Like, I don't believe that I could go and be the one on the snake side, point after point, every single point. But I know how to play the one on the snake side, in my mind, as good as the best players that do it. So if you ask me to do it once or twice a match, I can do it. Maybe that's not my role. Maybe that's not what I'm going to do. And it's a whole different animal when that is your job every single time. But my point is that all the players need to understand and know what every position and what every player is supposed to be doing and what your job is on the field. Totally. Right. It's the understanding of it. It's the knowledge of what different players bring to that game plan and to that table. More so than actually being able to do it. And you're right, Matty. There's like, of course, there are specialists, and that's a great question too. Specialists. I know for Dynasty, for us, it's like, hey, can you play the snake? I don't even care if you can do anything else. Can you get in the snake? Can you get in the snake? Yeah. Can you survive? Can you like pull something off? Cool. That was all you had to do for our team for a little bit. It really was like that was our area of weakness. You had me or Ryan going in there, and I think there's a photo of me in Vegas 2019 diving into the snake, like barrel sticks into the ground, loader breaks off, ASA breaks, all this stuff. So you're right. Being a specialist can absolutely get your foot in the door, and I think it's a good question too, Manny, because I don't want to give off this image of or this message that, you should try so hard to master everything. Really, sometimes being just a specialist at what you do can absolutely get your foot in the door. But, you do have to know the whole game. You have to know what your two is going to be looking for. Why is your role as an attacker so important? What kind of pressure does it relieve from your 2 and your 3? What kind of pressure does it relieve from your Dorito side? How does it allow at World Cup, that was such a big part of my game. Sometimes I attacked first. A lot of the times I didn't, though. I would just get to that Dorito 1 and I would kind of sit there, wait, marinate. My snake side would attack and apply pressure, and then guns would turn. And that was my time to go, so you need to understand the whole game, and again, so yeah, the specialists are important, because if you go and you take things at like face value at a tryout or something, you're going to get noticed. But if you really want to make a name for yourself, if you want to be the best one day, if you want to cement a legacy, you do need to understand all of it. You look back, even like Angel Fergoza, right? In the early days where, watching film wasn't as big of a thing, really wasn't much film to watch. The way we take the game now, we didn't quite do the same things back then to learn about the process. Angel was just a dominator. And, but you know what? He understood everything. He understood all the positions, even though he was always in the snake. He understood all the positions. You have to, it's an overall understanding of the game. Right. So that's a tough conversation with being a specialist. And because, I know coaching divisional teams, I definitely look for, okay, hey, we need a snake player. There's certain things I need. I need you to be fast, athletic, and aggressive. The other stuff we can teach, right? Like if you're making bad moves, we can teach. We can teach you to make better decisions. We can work with you to be more consistent. We can do things to kind of slow your game down. But if I need a snake player and you're slow, you're afraid to attack, you're always in the back, you're not fast, that's never going to work. That's never going to work. You are never going to get that role.
Ever.
Yeah, never. You're always going to be the 2 or the 3. So if I only need a 2 or a 3, you're not even on my radar. You might even be a decent player, but you're just not even on my radar, because it's not what I'm looking for.
But it is interesting because it's totally true. And I've said it a million times. We'll continue to say it. I mean, the quickest route to being a pro paintball player is being real aggressive, real fast, real aggressive, and being a sponge. If you can show up on time, be super aggressive and really fast, you're probably going to get some looks, and you probably could get them pretty quick as long as you're not a giant douchebag. And you probably can have a, pretty good chance. But the situation is, and I think it's interesting, is that there are a lot more 2 or 3s, but it's really hard to find really good 2s and 3s, by process of elimination. Experience. And that's kind of like, you almost do need. And almost, if you look at all the best 2s and 3s, not all of them, but most of the really good ones ended up being, like yourself, a reformed or slightly more experienced elder statesman first attacker. So it's like you come up being that reckless kid that's, pushing the limit out there with aggression and trying to get crazy after it. And you get, starting to get reps with really good teams. And you get a lot of reps being that first attacker, and you learn what doesn't work. And then typically, because you have a really high paintball IQ, and you're a good gunfighter, is typically why you get put back. It's like, you're a little bit more crafty, you're a good gunfighter, maybe you have a big voice, you're a good communicator. And it's like, I remember when I went from, first attacker, but just when we were calling them front players back in the day, and Shane was like, hey, you have a really loud ass voice, you're fast and you're aggressive, but you're smart. I need you like behind the Olivers and the Davies and the Eric Roberts. Like, let those dudes go cause chaos so that you can kind of come through and clean it up. And we need that. We don't have any of that, so it's like, I was like, I don't want to do that at all. That sounds like a terrible idea, Shane. And he's like, well, I'm the captain and I know best. And so that's what we're doing. And that was like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. So that's kind of like, I'm wondering, your thoughts on then having to play that spot, because it's a tough spot to play. And then the next question I will have after that, so you can transition, or I'll just ask it after you're done with that question. But is that how does Marcello Margott find himself playing as the first attacker on the D side at World Cup? So want to kind of see how that ended up. Should we do that first?
Yeah. No, let's get to the second question first. Let's go through being a 2, right? That's
yeah, okay.
You're responsible for so much more of the game. It's easy to understand why a more experienced player needs to be in that role, because not only do you need to understand and give information and almost joystick your 1, right? You have to be responsible for your 1. You have to be responsible for yourself. You have to be responsible for the other side. There's more on your plate. Whereas a 1, I don't want to diminish a 1's responsibilities, because a really good one, again, like a Mouse, a Chad George, these attackers that Dalton is so good at it, getting into a really good spot with that pressure and then giving his team information and letting them catch up, understanding the flow of the game there, right? So that's why you see, this is a long conversation, actually. You just asked a question that opens up a can of worms, but that's why right now in professional paintball, 100%. That's why right now in professional paintball, you see the pros that have been there for 15 years. They're the best attackers, even though that is a physically demanding position. It's a position where athleticism at face value should be rewarded more than anything else, but it's not. Now, granted, the top 1s, you look at Mouse, you look at Chad George, you look at Dalton, they're in shape, they're fast, they're quick, they still dominate that space, but that's not really what makes them great. Not even close. It's fantastic that they can make their spots a little easier. They get shot off the break a little less, but it's more the decisions that are made when they're in these front spots, which are the most stressful spots. You have a lot of attention on you. You often don't have clear view of the whole field. You often have to sit there and rely on your 2s or your 3s to protect you and let you know what's going on. So it takes a really poised and experienced attacker to be able to really excel in those positions. With that said, the 2 still has more responsibility, because again, you're responsible for making that 1 feel comfortable, giving that 1 that information. You're responsible for becoming that 1 if you lose that 1 on the break or mid-game. You're responsible for understanding the entirety of the game plan and what's going on the other side. And, don't get me wrong, the 1s need to understand the game plan and what's going on the other side as well. Otherwise, you're going to make bad decisions. But the 2 really, really is in a position where you have to think about everything. The game clock, you got to think about so much and be so involved that it takes a lot of years. That's why you see the players kind of transition from the 1 to that spot, because you're not going to put the less experienced guy in the 2 role. No one's ever going to do that, right? Because you're in a position to where you need to manage. Yeah, you need to manage the game, and then not only manage the game, but you're the closer. Usually, right? If you're a 1 and you're a closer, again, that's why people like Dalton, Mouse, Keith Brown, when he really, is in that zone and he attacks, and Chad George, the reason they're such elite 1s is because they also close games from that position, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, traditionally it's like, hey, we need a 1. Let's get somebody that can get into the snake. And, Billy Bernacchi is actually a great example, and I'm sorry for not putting him in that, because I put him in that category now. But when Billy came up, he was just aggressive, right? He's going to get in the snake. Chad George too, and actually Mouse. You know what? All of them were. I think that's kind of the story for 1s. They start out, they're hyper aggressive. They'll bunker you. They'll take 1 or 2 bodies off the field, and then they're off the field. So guess what? That's fantastic that you made a really dope move. You even shot 2 people. Let's say you shoot 2 people for your 1 body. That should be seen as a huge thing. Guess what? That doesn't win a point. The only way you can win a point is by hitting the buzzer or hanging the flag. Like, that is how you win the point. And that is where the 2s and the 3s come into play. Like, they're the only ones that can manage that and be able to finish the game. It's like, in basketball, you can score a ton of points in the first, second, third quarter. But if you don't score in the fourth quarter, probably going to lose the game. Like as the point goes on, you have to be able to score, shoot people, eliminate people, and get to that buzzer at the end of the point to get the point. So you want your experienced players that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm with you 100%, but that's every sport. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're talking tennis, golf, baseball, MMA, boxing, like to be, you know, and to have the experience, the mental tenacity, whatever, the endurance to be able to persevere, to be there at the end. That's the most important thing. And but another thing, and also maybe just co-sign a little bit what you're saying. There's a lot of these younger up and coming ones. We see this all the time. We talk about this all the time. Every time we do a show, every year, every event, every time I see these new teams coming out here, and I'm like, here we go. We got Dave Haber from the Outlaws. Dude, they might as well. I say it all the time because it's so true for some of these kids. I'm like, they might as well just let Dave Haber start at the 50. Just let him start in the 50 because he's there every game, every single point. No one can shoot him. He's there 9 times out of 10. I got to say it because it's so goddamn true. I'm like, look at this dude again at the 50. Why can't anyone else seem to make it as much as Dave Haber? But then I don't mean to pick on Dave, but then what happens to guys like Dave Haber a lot? They get to the 50 snake and they either get shot out of there with either getting one or so maybe they get their one, but then they get shot out, or they don't get their one, or they trade, or they get a little greedy in there because the point's going a little bit too long and they're getting a little antsy, or they lose their guys around them and they can't because the 2s and 3s aren't good enough. And then they end up losing, and no matter what so it's like we keep seeing this, you know. And so it's like, yes, the first attackers, absolutely, they set the tempo and the pace, because whether your guy made it alive, how much ground he took, did he stay alive while he's in there? The game kind of does revolve around those instances, but then so much can happen from there. And then another thing too is that year after year, tournament after tournament, when you watch the best in the business fight for the first place victories, it very rarely does come down to the first attackers. You know, sometimes it does. Sometimes those, and I'm not saying that they're not a key factor. Don't get me wrong. Again, like, don't misinterpret what I'm saying here.
They're super key. Yeah, right.
But they're super key. But where is, like, when the game goes 4-4 into overtime or 5-5 or whatever, and we're playing through all these different points, a lot of times those dudes run through and they do their business. And yeah, sometimes they'll have a point and that'll be huge. But a lot of times, it devolves into the scramble, and it's the 2s and the 3s trying to figure it out. And then those are the dudes that end up deciding who wins and who loses that tournament. And that's why, and that's just, again, it's very important. Now, again, not always, but more often than not, that's where it gets decided.
No, Matty, you're so right. And it's funny. I've been watching a lot of old school videos during like the heart of the pandemic. So last year, it's been a while. I went through and watched like all of the old school videos, Push, Sunday Drivers, some of the serial killers, like all of it. And more recently, I watched again Serial Killers, your segment, right? Somebody that doesn't understand might not understand how, I was going to say the F word. I'm used to my podcast. I won't. How effing good you were, because the way you applied pressure, it's a unrewarded skill, right? And I understand it as a 3 and as a 2. You don't see it in the stat line. Someone who's phenomenal at it is J-Rab. I think Impact has really struggled this year, not having his full attention, right? Obviously not having him at Cup. I mean, dude, J-Rab he's known from the public from his highlight moves, hanging the flag against Dynasty with, a couple seconds to go with Russian Legion, and then the different things he's done with Impact, his highlight moves. But that's not what J-Rab brings to your team. Like, that's great if he does that. It's his consistency and ability to apply pressure to the other team so that his ones can do what they want. And it doesn't show up on the stat board. Like, sometimes he'll shoot his mirror while applying pressure. That's great, but it's not showing up. You watch J-Rab, he's consistently over the top of his bunkers, shooting it more than one person. He's very active, right? It's something that you can't quantify in numbers, in stats. But as a professional player, as a peer, you understand how much he contributes to his team's success. That's something you did incredibly well. You watch that Serial Killers video, and like you're just dominating everybody you're playing against. And it's like, see, that is powerful. That is why your teams won. That's why you had so much success. But it's not glorified. which leads into, I know,
No,
our
it's
conversation
not.
that we're going to have later.
Yeah, I know. A conversation. Yes, and this is why I want to get there, because I've been there, dude. But the thing is like, hey, game recognized game, man. And the thing that people used to, I remember having this conversation with people, but and I would ask myself this question after a while. It's like, why do you still do it? Like, what's the point, right? Because, yeah, for a certain amount of time, I was like, getting by playing paintball. It was like, rather mediocre living, but it was a great life. The quality of life was great. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But it wasn't like, we're sitting in you're just bathing in your your $100 bills and all your bands around you. And like, you get to go out to your Lamborghini, like in your mansion. That's not at all the case. But what did I really do it for? Honestly, the reason why I really enjoyed doing it was what I really loved was the gunfight, man. I loved, getting into a corner and just like, and I knew that whoever's there, I just had this, and I'd love the switch. It's like a certain switch would flip, and it would be like, I'm going to do my goddamnedest to dominate this situation. And so I can wrap and shoot everyone in the center and let my dude do whatever he wants to do down the sideline. And so it's just like that battle. I would love that battle. I loved it so much. I still, to this day, like, I might probably going to go play Santas and Grinches here. It's like a big game at Velocity up the mountain here in San Diego.
Yeah.
But it's still, when I
when
go play paintball.
When is that this year, Matty?
I think it's hold on, let me just check the calendar real quick. I think it's the 12th. I want to say, I think it's not this upcoming Sunday, but the Sunday after that. I don't know if you're
going to try to go,
but
I love Velocity.
Could be
Yeah,
tight.
I mean, that's
they've done a lot with that. Yeah, we all, kind of came up there a little bit. I came up at Borderland, but I love, what they've done with Velocity, Daryl Denise. But absolutely, dude. And you're right. It doesn't show up on the stat line because, first of all, we weren't doing kills then. December 11th, actually. So the Saturday. So yeah, hopefully you can make that. But it doesn't
Saturday's
show up
even
on
better,
the stat
actually,
line.
yeah.
But it does show up in the victory column. That's where it shows up. So, it shows up in the results. And in the respect of your peers, because everyone knows that, dude, you don't want a gunfight. And you're one of those guys. I hear that constantly. People are like, dude, Marcello shoots dudes on the break, and he's really, really, really hard to kill. He's just a dude that sometimes he'll be gun dominant, sometimes he'll back off, he'll bait you, he'll trap you. It's difficult to gunfight you, but that's kind of, but you have to be willing to be in that headspace of giving up. It's like, again, when Shane came and was like, hey, we have all these dudes that can play the one now. We need guys that can play and finish the game. I need to look at this at another level as a coach, and I feel like you could be in that role. I didn't want to do that because where's all the glory? All the glory is up front. All the glory is Oliver Lang running through and shooting 5 dudes. All the glory is, Eric Roberts was his dyed blonde hair, running down the sideline, bunkering people. Like, that's what the glory is. Like, and yes, do you get some glory? I'm not saying I didn't get any glory, and I'm not saying there's not glory, but that was kind of my point. That was the conversation we were having a little bit. It's just difficult though, because you have to be in order to get glory as a 2 or 3, you really have to be in a really tough spot, a low body situation where it's got to come down to a 1-on-1, or you have to pull off a 1-on-3, or, a 2-on-5. I mean, it's situations where you really should not be prevailing. Yes. And so it's a tough ask, because you are a bit of a lineman, to use an NFL reference. I mean, you're doing a lot of blocking. There's a lot of pressure that you're putting out there.
He's a lineman.
So that people can run down the field.
I think more of a quarterback.
Yeah, quarterbacks are throwing. Yeah, I mean, sure. All right, I'll give you that. If you want to go,
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna say a lineman. I'm not gonna say a lineman. I think the 2s and 3s are more quarterbacks. You're responsible for so much.
Depends on the play, baby. Depends on the play. You're telling me you don't do lineman stuff sometimes? I feel like you have to. I've seen you do lineman stuff. It's like you got to go out there and you got to just not let this dude come up that side. Like that's your job for a little bit. I've seen you do that. I know you play that it happens.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. But in that, you're still, you usually are quarterbacking a lot of the situation. Okay. I mean, I see that you're making like one. Yes, that happens. But the 2s and the 3s are definitely much more quarterbacks than linemen. At least they should be. And if you're not going to be a very good 2 or 3, because if you're not able to, again, it's understanding the entirety of the game plan. So if we break out and I see, the game plan is to go to this insert bunker and look inside, and I see Mikey looking outside, it's easy to fix that. Because I'm like, hey, that's our hole. We don't have eyes on A-Rod running through the center right now. Mikey, switch, look this way. Whereas, the lineman thing, my goodness, don't compare us to linemen, Mom. Come on, man.
Hey, we're a little bit. You have to have that mentality, though. That like I gotta do my job and we win. If I do my job, we win. You're right. There is more creativity there. It's not an exact comparison.
For sure.
It's not a metaphor that resonates the entire
there.
way through. There's a lot of creativity there, but you're not like always a quarterback, because depending on the situation, like sometimes you do just need to contain. And sometimes, if
it's
you shoot
rare,
your guy,
but yes, you're right.
It's rare.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Yeah. So sometimes there are fields. I remember Vegas 2017, the event that we won. There was a can on the Doritos side that it was my job to go there, and literally I sat there and shot 12 pods. I used one of the G6Rs, so I didn't even use the regular gun that I'm used to shooting. And I sat there and just shot cross the whole time. And it was the most boring event that I think we've ever won for me personally. But nobody got in the snake. Not a single person got into the snake against us the whole event. Right. And it's like it's a thankless job. That was a lineman duty for sure.
I'm just saying, because, again, I'm talking about more than just necessarily X-ball 5-man professional, because, some people might still be playing some 10-man out there. If you go do different roles, also back in the 7-man days, I played a decent amount of positions where it was like, all right, dude, we need somebody who can just go to this spot and literally not let anyone do anything on this side of the field. All right, Matty, you have to do that spot. I'm like, I don't want to have to do that spot. Come play the corner over there on that side. Like, no, because if we put that person here, like they're going to get impatient and then they're going to check off on the other side and then they'll make that move. So no, you just have to sit here and, like you said, literally just gunfight all these people here and not let them make it to whatever that spot is. And then sometimes you still have to do that on a 10-man field. But you're right. It is a little bit more typically in the 5-man game, kind of like the quarterback, but it is. So then let's kind of transition a little bit, because, again, how does Marcello Margott end up playing as the first attacker on the D side for Dynasty here at World Cup? I know that the injuries had been a thing. It just, again, it makes Dynasty's story that much more dramatic with all the injuries that had happened this year and all the stuff that you guys have had to persevere through to make it through that, take the third place at that second event, and then to win the last 2 events in a 4-event season, to win 3 out of 5, 2 events in a row, 2 World Cups in a row. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than that. And it did make your story also, and the overarching story, that much more interesting, because you were, you would occasionally you got to mix it up, stay unpredictable, and you are versatile. So you have played different spots, but you were the go-to guy on the D side pretty much every single point, almost the entire event. How did that happen?
I mean, other than the obvious, again, our number one attacker over there, Dalton, got hurt, right? And literally the Sunday before World Cup. So it's like, okay, what's going to go on? And Arturo had been playing over there. Had been playing pretty well too. I got to give to Arturo. He was playing the one really well in practice. He's been asked to do a lot of different things for us this year, and he's really risen to the occasion. For somebody that doesn't have a ton of experience, he's really risen to the occasion of, hey, Arturo, we need you to fill this hole. We need you to fill that hole. But ultimately, I think I give a lot of it to Dalton, because it's so funny in Chicago. Dalton and I were kind of switching off in that 1 or 2 role in practice. And the team wanted me in the trash can, shooting Dorito away on the break, because that's where you could get kills from on the break. But for whatever reason, I couldn't shoot anyone on the break from that can to save my life. It was, like off the break shooting.
You couldn't shoot anyone off the break to save your life over there. It's, I'm just missing this guy over here. I feel like I need to play the first attacker on the D side, because I can't shoot this guy to save my life, dude. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I'm off. I need to be over here.
No. Well, so this is Chicago. This is Chicago though, right? And this is Chicago.
Okay.
So, right. So this is where it kind of developed though, and Dalton started to go to the can, and some of our plays is he would go to the can, shoot off the break, and then actually still release and still be the one. But like every time he would go to the can, he would shoot his guy. So Skinny Kevin's like, Marcello, you suck. You can't hit your guy. Dalton's hitting him every time. Can you like at least make the corner, or like, what are you good for? So that's where it kind of started, showing the ability for us to be interchangeable. And sometimes I would run and shoot to the corner, and then I would attack. Or sometimes I would go to the can. Typically, we wouldn't get any kills on the break when I'd go to the can because I wasn't as good at shooting on the break as Dalton was. But we were interchangeable in that. And then going into World Cup, I don't know, man. I just had something that was telling me that I need to get back to being more aggressive. And part of that is, Alex Frazier just really, not always in the best way, to be completely honest. There's times we just clash over and over. Like, I feel like I'm such a soldier for the team, and I try to just do what's best for the team, try to be a really good team player, try to be, there for everybody in that glue. And I get criticized for it at times, and even when I feel like I could win a game playing slow, he's upset that I didn't play fast enough. And there's something to take away from that, right? Like he pushes you to explore creativity. And it's taken me a long time to really realize I've processed a lot of different things since World Cup, because we'll get into this for sure, Matty, but it's interesting going into World Cup. I've almost never felt worse going into an event than going into World Cup, which is crazy. I've almost never felt worse going into an event than I felt going into World Cup. And some of this magic of when I think back to the players that I looked up to, it was Alex Frazier, Oliver Lang, Ryan Greenspan, Yosh Rao, the Dynasty guys. Those are the guys that I looked up to because they created magic in the early 2000s that was unmatched. To this day has never been matched. And I'm kind of, in a way, seeing how some of it's done. And Alex really pushes you to not play the right way. He wants you to go out there and create some spectacular shit. He doesn't want you to be the architect that is doing the high percentage plays. He wants to instill belief in you to be able to go out and do some shit that nobody's ever seen. And I'm starting to understand that a little bit more. And it's still tough. I fight with Alex a lot, more than I used to fight with Ryan a lot. Now it's Alex, it's just the dynamics of the team.
Well, you and I have spoken about this on camera. We've spoken about this off camera. I've talked to every one of those dudes on and off camera about it. But I truly feel that every team that I was ever on that was successful was this way. I watched Dynasty since their inception be this way. I lived with Ryan Greenspan for 5.5 years. I've seen how the sausage is made. And I truly think that there's really no other tried and tested way of doing it. You kind of have to... There has to be like a chaotic maelstrom of personalities swirling around and fighting for, their view of how things are supposed to go, whether that's game plans or rental cars or, whatever it may be, how to play the field, like who's rooming with who, whatever. There just is this there's this chaotic, vibe, this energy that just goes back and forth, and it doesn't always work with everybody. And that's why, guys leave and teams all the time and all this crazy stuff happens. But, if you're willing to kind of just butt heads a little bit and see what may come of that almost kind of like, it's not really like violence, but it's almost like, it's like you're feeding in this slightly, it's not negative. It is negative. You're letting the negativity fuel positive growth. And that's what you do to your muscles. That's what you do to your brain. When you're studying, when you're lifting weights, when you're in a sauna, your body is being stressed. It brings out your body responds to that. And I think emotionally, sometimes we get a little bit shoehorned into these comfortable experiences, people we vibe with, oh, this is great. I love this person over here. But it's like, maybe that's not the person that's going to bring the most growth out of you, and it's like, I've said this on so many shows, but I would have paid money to see Ryan Greenspan, Alex Frazier, and Oliver Lang argue at practice. I would have paid a $10 entrance fee, even though I got it for free, because we'd be either playing them or they'd be on the sidelines. We'd be playing somebody else. And it would just be so entertaining at listening to those dudes go at it, arguing about everything. It was just great. But that's part of the sausage, dude. And it's like thank your enemies and thank your antagonists. Like it brings goodness out of you.
Yeah.
It's tough, but it does.
It is. Alex is very don't chase perfection, chase magic. Right? That's really how I can describe it. And my game has always been very analytical. Even when I spent my years attacking as the one on the Dorito side, very methodical, very analytical. That's how I played it at World Cup, right? It was my way, even though I had Alex in my ear a bit, but it's less aggressive than some of the others, but it's higher percentage, and I'm going to control my side. Alex is okay with, if you try something and it doesn't work, he's going to give you a high five. But if you don't try something and it does work, he's still going to yell at you. He's very pushy in you exploring that creativity as a player. And as frustrating as it is, because it's really frustrating, because I don't always agree that that's the best way for the team to win, it teaches you, and it does help you grow as a player, right? Like, it's really special and unique. And he's one of the only people that I think could get away with doing it, because he is who he is. He's Alex Frazier, and he understands the game. He truly does. And so it's an interesting thing. But, back to your question of how it became me being the one, right?
Just real quick though, can I just say, I just think that it's like, I was just kind of reflecting on, again, having watched Dynasty over throughout these years, and then now you guys are whooping ass yet again as a franchise. And I think that, you and Oliver's games are different. You and Oliver's spirits are different. But the fact that I think that Dynasty's blessed to have, and obviously Ryan and Alex have been there since the beginning. Yosha's like the voice of reason. He kind of comes in when shit's getting a little twisted as far as arguments are concerned. But it's really good. I think it's been incredibly productive for Dynasty. When this is all said and done and none of you guys are playing anymore, looking back at this era, like the fact that you've been around for as long as you have on that team. And then, when Tyler was there, Tyler's not super argumentative, but you are willing to argue your point. You're a pragmatist, you're a tactician, you have a very high paintball IQ. You look at the game a very specific way. Ryan's a little bit different. He also is a bit of a pragmatist. And then you have art, and then you have like the artist, Alex. Having those different viewpoints, willing to clash and figure it out. I mean, that's one of the reasons you guys are as so successful as you are right now. Obviously, there's the on-field production. Obviously you have, Ryan with the MVP at World Cup last year, Alex with the MVP from your win at the last one, you and Blake with the MVP at the last one. Blake is also a dude who, he's a brutal guy out there as an attacker, but his game has gotten more refined. He's gotten more creative. It's gotten more refined. It's aging like, like that proverbial fine wine. So, but I think that on the back end of it, knowing that you have done your battles, you and Ryan have had your battles, you have your battles with Alex, like being willing to have those goddamn battles, man. Like that is how the sausage is made. People, if you're out there, be willing to have conversations with your team. Deal with these people knowing they have different viewpoints. That's okay. That's the point. If everyone you sit in your meetings and everyone's like, absolutely, yes, great idea over there. Oh, this is great. We're going to smoke everyone tomorrow. You're probably going to get your goddamn ass whooped. Like that's not the magic of the win right there. You have to be willing to get out there and argue your point, even if you, and maybe you're wrong, but if you think a certain way about it, voice your opinion and argue your point. But if you do not agree with that person, even if that person has a stronger personality or whatever it may be, you need to, and whoever's in charge of all that has to kind of let that go a little bit, as long as it's heading down the productive road. But it's like, I just really think that you guys are all just so blessed to have each other right now, even though, you guys do think about the game in different ways, but it has worked out so shiningly well for you guys here this past year and a half. So it's a really good thing.
Yeah. You can't deny that it's worked out really well for the team. And I think, again, that's always been the conversation around Dynasty, is there's so many intellectual players that play a different style, and there's a brotherhood that understands the goal is to win. So how are we going to do that? And you have these 3-hour meetings that are sometimes it just feels like you're just running in circles and you're just never going to get anywhere. It's frustrating. You just want to walk out. There's been times where I've given up. You just throw in the towel, right? Because your voice isn't going to get heard. But those somehow, and again, I mentioned earlier that a lot of my thinking has been shifted this year because of the way things have gone down. It's honestly made me grow a ton. I think in the last month, I've probably grown more as a player than I have in a long time. Looking back and reflecting on all of the dynamics that were involved to bring us to this point, and recognizing why certain things happened and how they happened and the types of conversations we were having and how we trained our practices, it kind of turned a lot of my paintball world, upside down. And if anything, it showed me that there's not just one way to win. There's multiple ways to win. And one of the biggest things is believing in each other and having chemistry. But it really, like, a lot of things have, again, I told you, going into this event, I didn't feel great going into World Cup, right? That's a weird space for me to be in. I'm a pretty.
Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Player. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Well, I just think that, so where were you heading into World Cup? Because and it's just so interesting, because sometimes, when things aren't working out, or when it's not quite clicking and you're willing to persevere and get past that, sometimes golden things happen. That did seem to be the case, but what was going on, and kind of where were you grinding your gears?
Well, I mean, it's funny. So I've somewhat been struggling with my body for, a while. Like, my knee has not been fantastic, but going into World Cup, my health felt amazing. I felt like I was in the best shape I've been in a long time. My knee was feeling really good. I've gotten involved with a new program and really taken my physical therapy to another level, and it's paid off. Physically, I feel the best I've felt since maybe ever, truly maybe ever, which is amazing. My endurance is good, not getting tired. And I feel like my burst speed, I feel like everything is as good as it has ever been. So going into our first couple practices, I was excited. I'm feeling good about myself, like, I've done all the little things. I'm feeling great. I feel like I'm going to come in and we have a chance to win the series, and I know what's on the line. Let's do this. The layout got dropped. I looked at the layout on paper and I said to the team, and I meant it, this is the best layout I've ever seen in my life. That's what I said to the group text. I meant it. I loved it. Thursday, I was out there at Victory Paintball Park. Shout out to Fran. Shout out to Victory. I helped Fran set up, 4 different fields, and I'm looking at it and I go, this is the best field that I've ever. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I loved the Dorito side. I loved that if you look at it on the gridded paper, it makes a D. Last time it did that was in 2015 World Cup. I remember I drew a D around the bunkers, the snake line, and then the Doritos, no corner. Oh, cool. So anyway, everything about it, I loved it. I did my drills. I spent all day Thursday doing drills, working on shots. I was feeling incredibly sharp, right? I felt really good. We come into practice that weekend against Uprising, and I could not stay alive. I just couldn't figure it out. So we also didn't have Dalton. So I was playing. We flew in, we had Ben, a kid that I work with, and Damien. Damien wasn't on the team at the time, right? They were just filling in these spots because we were low on bodies as it is. And then Dalton wasn't able to make this practice because of work. So we had to bring in some bodies to help us with that. So I'm playing the 2, behind players that I'm not typically used to playing with, and it just wasn't going well. I couldn't stay alive. I couldn't live in the back center. I couldn't live in the can. It was all like such random things too. I would shoot off the break and make a fill, and someone would look my way and shoot me on the fill. I would stand in the blind. No matter what it was, I couldn't stay alive. And at some point throughout the day, I was like, Skinny, can I please be the one? Like, I'm frustrated back here. I'm not helping the team. I'm hurting the team. I'm not playing well. Can I just be the one and I just want to basically run with my eyes closed and see if I could shoot some people. Right. So I go and be the one. I have a couple of really good points. So I start to get a little bit of a rhythm back, I'm like, okay, cool. Now things are good. Sometimes that's all you need. You just need a couple good points to get out of a funk. Right. So I do that, and then I start playing the one a little more consistently, but I'm making a ton of mistakes. I'm attacking way too aggressively. I'm trying to be what I know Alex wants me to be honest. Like, that's what's in my head is, hey, it's practice. I'm going to really push this envelope. I'm going to try to be as aggressive as I can be. I'm going to see what I can get away with. We can't lose the tournament today. So if I get shot first every point, who cares? And so many points, like, I would make so many good little moves, shoot a person, but then get shot, overextending, right? But in my mind, I'm going, this is really good. This is good because I'm learning every time I get shot. I'm like, okay, so that's the snake brick that shot me. That was weird that he looked this way, but it can happen. Okay, boom. Now this guy's on me. Now that guy's on me. Okay, understanding the different positioning, different aware, how I can die making those moves, being hyper aggressive. Still didn't have a great weekend, right? still to my standards played pretty bad. So then we go into the next weekend of practice, which is with Impact, and Dalton's back. So fantastic. We have our all-star stud on the Dorito side, one of the best in the business to ever do it. And I get to play the 1 and 2 with him, right? So we're going through the practice and we're switching off again, which this is why I brought up Chicago, is it kind of got started in Chicago, me and Dalton kind of being interchangeable over there. Because, sometimes Dalton would get out to the gate and he's like, you got to run, dude. I'm kind of tired. Dalton's like, it's your turn. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I would go out. He would go out. It made it harder for other teams to scout us. And it also it really brought some resurgence to my game because it's exciting to go and play the 1 again. So throughout practice, I would go out and play the 1 quite a bit, against Impact. And, we had a pretty good day, but not great, to be honest. Our team was not playing well together. I was really frustrated because we were playing very selfish. The team wasn't communicating. There was no situational awareness. When we were up bodies, we would still be trying to make, moves on our own. It was a frustrating weekend. So again, I'm going in there. I'm personally not playing great. I would have a few breakthrough points that were really good, and up to standard. And then the rest are not good, not good. And I just couldn't break the funk. It was really strange because I felt so good, so I've never been in that position in my entire career. I was talking to Yosh about it. I was like, never in my life. Look, if I have one bad day at practice, that's okay. I'm like, okay, I'm going to play great the next day. I truly have never had 2 bad days in practice. I had 2 bad days. Then I had the next weekend 3 bad days, and then 4 bad days. And I was like, okay, I kept having the confidence, okay, I'm going to break out of it. I'm going to break out of it. I'm going to break out of it. Of course I'm going to break out of it. Right. But I wasn't breaking out of it.
When did we catch you on the interview for 4 Sundays? I'm trying to remember when that was.
I believe it was after the first weekend of practice. Right.
Okay. I would have,
I think it was after the first weekend.
I have it on my calendar. I could go back.
Maybe it wasn't,
but I was just wondering if off the top of my head. But I'm just wondering
when in there
we got that interview.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was, I feel like it was after the first weekend of practice.
I think it was too. I don't know. I'd have to come out of the conversation and focus on trying to figure out when the hell that was.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Which I don't want to do right now. But yeah, it's just so interesting because this happens often, man. You have people and teams. It's happened to me. It's happened to teams I've played for. I've heard it happen. It's not always, obviously, if you go out and have a bad day at practice or multiple bad weekends, individually or as a team, it doesn't always bode well for you at the tournament. But every now and then, having those struggles, and it's like that cliche, but it's the times that you have to struggle through now end up being your armor for struggles in the future. And sometimes you need those valleys in order to have the strength to get to the, to whatever peak is in front of you. And it just seemed to be, you seem to be very tenacious over there because that D-side battle was not just a one-faceted battle. You had to kind of sometimes, like you said, slow play it, sometimes ramp it up, play off what's happening on the snake side because the snake side was potent as well too. It was a pretty badass field layout. I really enjoyed watching it. We had a lot of close games, particularly on Sunday. And then if we kind of just go through your guys's that Sunday performance, which I just think was an interesting road because you had to play Damage, and Damage had just come off an overtime victory. Damage really needed to have a good performance to save their year. So you had to crush their dreams to continue yours. It was, I think it was 5-2 was a score there. And then you played a pretty close one against Infamous to knock them out of the tournament and destroy their dreams as well. And then you go on to play X Factor yet again, a rematch from the last event, a rematch from the last World Cup. They've been so consistent, but it's been really hard for X Factor to put a victory on the board. Obviously we could, we could spend another hour kind of breaking down the entire Sunday, but that was a really cool road for you guys. Another dramatic one with a lot of soul crushing losses for your opponents. Let's start with the Damage situation. You know you're playing a team that needs to have a really good performance on Sunday. They just came off an overtime victory against Revo. What do you think about that match?
Well, first of all, just to close out, the conversation of going into that event with all those bad practices and how I was feeling,
Yes.
I still had felt I'm ready to rock and roll. Like, I've learned as much as I can on this field, right? And so that was what I was going to get to, is my point with practices. Often when you have really bad practices, if you can process the information correctly, they're the best practices you can have. I'll never forget when I was playing with the Ironman in like 2014, maybe it was 13 or 14. We played against Dynasty the weekend before an MAO event, and we beat them, I think, like 32-4. It was like such a beating in practice. And they went on to win the event. And a good team that gets beat up in practice is going to learn more than a team that has a lot of success in practice. So those adversities, and again, the reason I wanted to circle back on this is because with coaching teams, I see a lot of my players, they get really discouraged if they have a bad practice. Okay, it's okay to have a bad practice. Like, it's frustrating and it sucks in the moment, but you're learning. You're not going to get surprised by this stuff at the event. Like, Impact beat us up. They beat us up the weekend before the event. We just, as a collective, we were not getting things correctly, but I believe that we saw so many different situations and so many things. We got stung so many times. We made so many mistakes that collectively we're able to come together and really sort that shit out, right? And that's huge. So anyway, just wanted to kind of circle back on that before we get into the damage game. But the damage game, going into play damage on Sunday, I mean, it's the last event of the year. It's the World Cup. It's in their hometown. Damage is a really, really good organization. They have a ton of talent. They have great coaching, great leadership. I knew it was going to be a battle. I was like, okay, that's a great first Sunday match. So for me, I had just set my intention over there before the match that I want to be a presence, right? I want to be a thorn. And, I think I've said this on one of our PTG shows, but my intention at World Cup as the one on the Dorito side was, I'm going to control my side. You can send me over there, send 4 bodies the other way. I'm not going to lose my side. Might not always win games over there, but I'm not going to lose my side. I'm going to have control over it. I'm going to know where the bodies are, and I'm going to steal points over there. That was what I wanted to do, right? Rather than just kind of consistently, recklessly attack and apply pressure in that fashion, I wanted to give my team the ability to put more guns in another direction, trust that I'm going to be alive. Nobody's going to come to our side of the field over there. And occasionally I'll steal some points, right? That was my intention. And the damage game kind of worked out that way. First couple points kind of worked out that way, where like I kind of slow played it and then waited for my move, got down the Dorito side, shot multiple bodies, and got us, kind of back in the game. I think the second point we were down bodies even, right? And I made like a little bit of a late attack down the Dorito side, got into the Dorito 3, got some kills, and came down to a 2-on-2. But that was my intention, right? And that's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I'm good with. It's a huge bummer that Dalton wasn't there. I would rather Dalton be there 10 out of 10 times. But I got to say, like, when we were in a position where we didn't know who was going to fill that spot, I was excited to play that spot again, because the spot I'm really good in. It's a spot that I've played my whole career. It's a spot that I enjoy. It's a spot that I talked to you about it before the event. Like, I want to attack. This is before Dalton got hurt, right? I was like, yeah. I want to attack again. I want to go and really utilize my skills in a more dangerous position than what I've been doing this season, because I know that I can do so much more and be more valuable to the team, and so that was my goal. That was my intention.
And it worked out great. It's just, it was just so cool to kind of see the progression again. I spoke a little bit about this, but to see this year, and, you and I get beers, we talk and stuff, and it's just to kind of see how well you guys had done. And then to see you have to switch positions. It was like watching, obviously at a way higher level, because it's World Cup and you guys won, but it was just so cool from both Mikey and Blake to go play at that Sacramento event. And they were just kind of in charge, Blake's coaching and Mike's not playing the first attacker and the Snake is playing the 2, and they were just dominant out there. And I was like, wow, what a great look for these dudes playing against, Impact and playing out of position. And then you go, it's not out of position for you. And it's a totally different scenario because it's not like you've never been the first attacker before, but it was just cool to have these conversations. Been a while, but to see you to want to play aggressive, to be on that side, to be in that position, thrive in that moment, and to get the MVP, co-MVP with Blake. We're gonna have Blake on the show next week. And awesome. It was really cool, man. It was just a storybook finish to the year for you. Talk about that infamous match before we get to the X Factor match. Infamous had a really big year this year. They also were one of the teams that had a chance, to win the series. They were 10-man dominant. I mean, you had Ryan on the show, and plays with Infamous, in the 10-mans. But it was just a really cool year for Infamous, but they just didn't have but before you kind of jump into it, what do you think Infamous just had a bad break a bunch of times this year? What is it going to take for Infamous to get a victory here? Because they were so close so many times. Talk about X-Ball, because or is it just a little bit more seasoning? Do you think, obviously, if they don't lose anybody, well, they're losing Greg, so that there's a conversation. But I'm looking at Infamous next year, and I'm like, I would be shocked if Infamous doesn't win an event if they can. And I know they're going after dudes too. So I'm just wondering, it's going to be interesting next year to follow that team. But if you had to kind of break it down, obviously you guys, again, you knocked them out of the tournament.
Yeah.
But if you could reflect upon that game and then maybe Infamous as a franchise moving into 2022.
Oh, man, I don't want to be disrespectful, because what Infamous has done and what Travis has done, one, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Travis. I think what he's done with that team is spectacular, with the brand, with the organization, with their 10-man, with how they showed up and competed this year. But I don't think they're going to win in 2022. I think when they lost that game in Orlando against Impact, I mean, I said it afterwards. I said they're not going to reach the finals again. Like, that was their chance to win and get that confidence going. That was their, and they really blew it. That 5-on-2 where Thomas goes through, he gets a major penalty, and then it's a 2-on-1, and Greg kind of overextends on the Doritos side, and then Cody trades out with Mouse to call a no point in a big point that in a 2-1 game. That game was 2-1. Right in the final, the final score was 2-1.
Crazy.
I had a feeling that would be the last time they're going to be in the finals. It's like as professional teams, you don't get that opportunity often. You're not in position to win often. You have to capitalize on it, and it slipped away from them. And they played phenomenal. I think Harrison is a rising star. As much as I like to clash with Harrison. We've competed overseas. We have, a history of that competition. He's become a really good player. He's a stud for them. But I'm sorry. I don't think if they don't pick up another seasoned player, I think they're going to really struggle, especially losing Greg. Greg played phenomenal for them this year. I mean,
played amazing
Greg,
this year. Amazing.
The amount of 1-on-1s and 2-on-1s he won in pressure situations to give them the lead. I mean, he won 2 of them against me throughout the season, and I watched him win multiple others. Greg played some of the best paintball I've ever seen Greg play. So without Greg, if you don't replace that role and make it a little better, which I just don't quite see how you do unless you go after someone like Mouse, which I don't think that's going to happen, or another top tier guy, I think they're going to struggle to get to the finals again. I could be wrong. Again, it's just my perspective, just my opinion on it. And it's no disrespect. I know when we play them, every time we play them, I know they could beat us at any moment. And you take that game as serious as possible, but you just look at that organization in the year. And for me, they let it slip away in Orlando. And I think they're going to struggle to win an event, we'll see though.
It's so hard. You only get 4 opportunities. Obviously, it's just so ridiculously tenuous. But a 2nd and 8th, a 3rd, a 4th for them, very consistent. Losing Greg is absolutely massive. It's, unless you got
it's huge,
a decent amount of money lying around. He's a guy that's kind of irreplaceable unless you do have a little bit of money. Now, Infamous does have some stuff to work with, and they have a deep roster. But if they can't go and get someone else, then they basically are somebody. It's like, okay, next man up. Somebody needs to play just as good as Greg did last year, and maybe slightly better, because we didn't win a tournament last year. We did take second overall, and we won a bunch of 10-mans, and that's awesome. Those are great, but that
10-man doesn't count. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, but
it doesn't. It's really cool, and it's a win. Like, I get it, but no, that does not count in competitive professional paintball. You know,
if you're talking about
it does not.
Yeah, the best of the best, absolutely. You know, I mean, it's like it's its own thing. It always has been. It always will be. I know you don't play 10-man's, not really your thing, but the people love it over there, and doing well.
I loved it.
Oh, I know.
loved
I'm
it.
just saying,
and
I
wish that we
you don't
won.
play a bunch of 10-man. You don't play a bunch.
Yeah,
of
but the reality is, like, people are drinking beers, having a good time, and it's fun. It's great, but it's not quite. It's not winning a major event. And actually, I think those 10-mans help them do better in the NXL league, right?
Totally agree. I agree with you both ways. Yes, they definitely help them do better. You're right. People are crushing beers in the parking lot because it's super fun. And, you know, these are grown-ass men that are paying their way to go to this for the most part. Very few people are getting like a ride to the 10-mans. But
totally.
But it's still it's just, you're right. It's not like it's not the equivalent. Of course, dude. I mean, everything is geared towards the best in the entire world playing at the NXL, best 20 teams. So yeah, the 10-man, you're winning the 10-mans, and that's badass. And that will probably continue to get more competitive. We'll see. Obviously, the rules changes. That's a conversation for another time. But yeah, Infamous is losing a hole. Greg leaving is a giant hole for them that they need to address. Somebody either needs to step up and play just as good or better than Greg on their starting 5, or they will not be as good next year, or they need to get somebody. They know that. Everybody knows that. All their peers know that. That is just the truth. Sorry, you had something for me?
Yeah, but also in Orlando, Thomas Taylor was like vintage Thomas Taylor. Thomas Taylor is playing amazing. Played lights out. It's kind of like for us with Alex and Ryan a little less because he's obviously been so much more consistent. Ryan has been, but this year you started to see some vulnerabilities in Ryan, you know, like he has a little bit of a back injury. You start to see, and then, you know, Alex, it's a similar question, right? Like, can they do that again next year? So if Thomas isn't the same player that Thomas was in Orlando for Infamous, I think they struggle. You know, I think they have a tough time filling that void. They got Zach Patient back, but, you know, Zach's great. He does a lot of good things, but that experience come Sunday, it's really hard to win in today's league in this division. You look at Houston Heat, Impact, you look at the top teams, and we haven't seen a full Russian Legion, by the way. You know, if we get a full Russian Legion back, this whole thing is different. Yeah, we might not. That's right. We might not, which is so unfortunate, so sad. Yeah, we might not. Do you know anything about that?
Nothing good. Nothing definitive though yet. So I haven't really got any sort of yes or no definitively as to whether or not they'll be, you know, here with their starting 5. If they're going to try to continue to do what they did last year and hold the line until we get clear of all this craziness. I don't know, you know, so I think we'll probably know more, and I don't know, unless you've heard something different.
Sure. No, I haven't. I've just you know, heard what's been going around on social media and things like that they might only play Europe and try to come back and play semi-pro in 2023 and earn a pro spot for 2024. That would be crazy. But then I see them on their personal social media saying that they're doing everything they can and will be ready to have a team here next year. So I mean, I sure hope so. I have so much admiration for the Russian Legion organization. They're one of the best, most professional in the business. So to not have them as part of the league would be a huge letdown. It'd be a huge bummer, huge loss. So
it really would. And then we have the Latin Kings coming in next year. I've talked to Diego, the owner of that team. I asked him if they were picking up any pros. He said they're like any current pros, and he said that they're going to be going with a Latin American squad. So, you know, and he knows how hard that's going to be for them. But it was fun to watch the Wild Dogs. But so that's going to be a fun story to watch. Well, you know, obviously you got to ask about, you know, your final game with X Factor. And then a couple more questions before we sign off that I got to ask you. Obviously, we got to talk about the JT situation. We got to talk about the new pickers for Dynasty. But, you know, X Factor picking up some new players. I had a pretty long talk with Alex Martinez at the event, the practice day, and it was cool. He definitely is all about the future for X Factor. He says, like, you know, because Alex Martinez has been around for a long time, man, and he's still out there playing occasionally. You know, and he's at every event. You know, still he's getting some spins here or there, and he basically said he's like, you know, I don't know how much longer I can play this game at this level the way I want to play it. But there will always be an X Factor. And I was like, that's really cool to hear. So, you know, but they've had to pick up some new dudes, and yeah, so that was just good as a paintball fan to hear come out of his mouth. No one around at all, no cameras there. That was not for, that was just, we were just kind of talking, but he's like, we will have an X Factor. He's like, I don't know if I'll be playing. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be playing. But I will be a leader on this team, and I will, you know, we will be fielding a competitive team, you know, and he's like, I'm all about it, which is good because, you know, that they're such a mainstay. When you do potentially hear things like that, the Russians may not be back for 2022, and we're always going to have turnover, but, and these legendary teams have been doing it for so long. And honestly, this is why, you know, whatever's good for San Diego Dynasty, I feel is good for me as a fan, because I want to see you guys be able to compete long term. So that's why I thought it was awesome that they brought you and Blake in as owners. I'm happy that if it's working out better for you guys, even though I thought the deal with HK was great. Love the HK guys, love what they're doing. But if it works out better for you with JT, you know, that's a really cool story too. So, you know, just the longevity of these things is important to me. So it was good for X Factor. But since you did beat X Factor in the finals, you know, what are your thoughts on X Factor for 2022 and in that game in the finals? Again, another close one, another super fun game to watch. You guys seem to have these wars against X Factor on the regular.
Yeah, so outside of Dynasty, Russian Legion and X Factor are the two organizations that I have and do respect and admire the most. Hands down. It's not even close. Impact, I respect their professionalism. I really respect how they approach trying to bring that real professional sports atmosphere to paintball. Heat has a similar thing going on. But as far as the culture of the teams, Russian Legion and X Factor outside of Dynasty, those are my two favorite teams. They're the teams that I just truly admire. I love what they've done with what they have. And X Factor, I think they've done a great job this year of bringing in new players. You look at it in Chicago, they bring in all these new players that were getting starting time. You don't have Rainey playing majority of the points, and they're still in the finals. You know, so that's just a testament to Ryan Brand, Alex Martinez, and what they do, the culture that they are cultivating out there. You know, we had Colt and Ryan Brand on the show the last two nights for Play the Game, and I love talking to those guys. I just truly respect them. You know, there's a lot of pros that I can't say that I have a ton of respect for because of how they approach things and how they go about it. These dudes I just really admire. Like Ryan Brand, he messaged me. It's so funny. We did a show with Brandon Cornell after World Cup, and we did get into the conversation of the final match. And there was a point where we were up 6-5, and he blew the horn a little early, you know, and we had talked about it. Well, it's up for debate if it's a little early, right? Like he blows it early, leaves his team a minute to score 2 points rather than, you know, trying to win a 3-on-4 against Dynasty in the finals. That could go either way, right? But, you know, on the show, I was like, you know, that's one of those tough things as a coach, because if it works out for you, you look brilliant. If it doesn't, it's like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. And Ryan, as always, it's just no ego attached, truly just trying to be the best version. He messages me. He's like, hey, dude, you were probably right about that. I would love to get on the show and talk about it. You know, I definitely made some mistakes. There's a lot of stuff that I've been beating myself up over. I would like to be open about it. Like, you don't find those kind of people very often. And in the limited time that I've gotten to know Ryan and what I've heard of him, he's one of the best coaches to ever play the game, hands down. The way that he approaches it, his humility and his ability to just kind of fall on his sword when he's wrong has allowed him to grow and really evolve the game, because he's changed the way certain things are done and called, right? In Orlando, the only reason we went to overtime to lose that damn 1 point is because he blew the horn in 8 seconds.
Yeah. I love Ryan Brand. I'm biased with Ryan Brand. I officiated Ryan Brand's wedding. I love me some Ryan Brand. So yeah, I've got nothing but positive things to say about Ryan Brand. And I love him as a coach. He's obviously had a lot of success. He is a straight shooter. You know, I mean, Ryan Brand is comes from a great family. He's definitely a straight shooter. He's always been one of those guys that, you know, I could talk to behind the scenes and gives me straight up answers about things. You know, so it's
sure.
And he's I don't think it gets much better than him. I'd love him with X Factor. He's a great leader for that team. He's done obviously really good things. That's another team that's not super easy to coach. And he's had to do some roster roulette recently too, getting guys in different positions. So yeah, dude. But you know, yeah, and the one thing with Ryan, and he definitely, I think, changed the game a little bit too with the way he conceded points. So it's
totally.
But the fact that he sent you that message doesn't surprise me all about Ryan. I was, you know, kind of midway. I was laying some sod in my backyard today, listening to your guys' conversation. And you know, he's a smart dude that knows a lot about this game. So but I'm just wondering for their next year, you know, it's like, you know, they're just, you know, can Rainey come back? Obviously, I think picking up Shorty was great. I like the Bulls kid. You know, how much can they get Colt? You know, what's going on with their core? It's just kind of, there's just still a lot of questions that up in the air for them. And that's one of the biggest stories, I think, heading into 2022, because X Factor is so damn consistent at getting to the deep rounds.
Well,
of the tournament.
TJ too. Is TJ going to be healthy? I mean, he's a stud when he's healthy, when he's playing. You know, we kind of forget about TJ Danner, but if he comes back and he's healthy, that helps them tremendously, you know? But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of question marks above that organization. Is Archie going to retire? What's Archie doing? What's his plans? There's a lot of question marks in that camp right now. But again, that's why I kind of wanted to highlight them bringing in those new players and how well they did in Chicago. You know, it speaks to the culture of the organization. I think X Factor is going to be competitive as long as they're a team. Alex Martinez knows what the hell he's doing. You know, they know how to build that. So you see like Meter and Jesse Stevens, they're playing some of the best paintball out of anybody in the league, right? Yeah, so I mean, like they have a full roster.
If Meter and Jesse are elite, and then is Colt going to retire? Archie's been doing this forever. He's been dealing with some injuries, but he seems to be back at 100%.
Colt's not retiring.
Like, that's good to hear. You know, it's just, and I keep telling him every year, I'm like, dude, please don't retire on us, because every time you show up, you still ball out. So, but it's like with all these guys, it's like, it was the same thing with Alex Frazier or when you've been doing this for so long and you have been at the top of the mountain, what's your motivation? A lot of these guys have regular lives, kids, family, jobs, whatever it may be. They're, you know, and so it's like, sometimes what is the motivation? And the motivation, that story you tell yourself that gets you there to the tournament, that brings that, you know, that demon out of you to give that 100%. What is that? What is the motivation? So I don't know. It's just going to make it super interesting going into next season. But yeah, X Factor is kind of a little bit of a question mark heading into next year. And then, but they've been able to pick dudes up too. So, you know, are they going to go after guys depending on how it all shakes out in the offseason? I don't really know. What's Impact going to do? I mean, Impact's also kind of a big question mark. For Impact. I mean, yeah, third place overall. They won the first event, second at the second event, but then a 10th and a 5th. Not the finish that they wanted to have. You know, Impact goes after dudes every year, you know, so it's and that's a team that, you know, Dave knows his shit, man. Dave's a great general manager, and he's a great coach. So, and they've been able to get the cream of the crop for years. So, but they have the cream of the crop currently. So if they get more cream of the crop,
they do. Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, that's always another question there heading into next year. Yeah, it's going to get a little bit interesting. But, you know, maybe maybe we're going to have another show here and talk about things in a little bit once some dust settles.
Wait, you got to go?
I do have a kid, and I'm going to put a little bit more, but I got a couple more questions for you though, before we sign off. Go. Well, you know, so, I mean, how are you feeling right now about this MVP? You know, I mean, like, you asked me off camera before we started, like, hey, you went back and rewatched it. What do you think? And I was like, I don't know, man. I think that you and Blake, to me, after going back and kind of rewatching it, you know, Dynasty doesn't win that tournament without both of you doing what you need to do. But it was kind of difficult to call as it was happening, because, you know, and if you're going to win a tournament, you're going to get contributions from lots of guys. But the fact that you you know, that Blake continues to evolve and had some really huge moments out there, and that you held it down. So, you know, again, like buy Marcello's book, Paintball IQ, because that was some high level Paintball IQ shit over there on the D side. So I don't know. I feel like if I had to go back, I'd probably do the same exact thing all over again. But how are you feeling after that? You know, I mean, we've had a lot of this conversation about positions and all this different stuff and where your headspace was at. But, you know, now that kind of, again, the dust has settled from this year, and it was a crazy year. You know, it's like you're brought in as an owner, you were in a little bit of a funk, you know, like you just admitted, you know, hey, I've had 3 bad weekends or 3 bad days in a row. That's never happened. And then you show up at Cup and perform. I mean, it's got to feel a little good, right? Like, can you just revel in it for a second?
Yeah, of course it does. And so I never quite got to finish the story about like the bad practices, but again, it was still like, okay, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, so the next point is going to be a great point. Like you don't continue to have these bad points, but it kept happening. And it was just a strange feeling because it's never been that consistent with practice. Usually you can turn things around pretty quick. You know, and then we get to the event and a similar thing was kind of happening through the prelims. I had some points where just dynamite. I'm like, dude, I just went down, shot 3 or 4 people, saved the game. And then the next point, I'm like, ball 1. I'm like, so I was struggling to find that consistency, but as a professional, as somebody that's done it a long time, you just have to continuously learn and have the confidence that you're going to be able to go through and do it on Sunday. When we woke up Sunday morning, I had watched all the games. I'd already gone through, I'd watched film, you know, I was in my room watching every single match, every point, everything that I did wrong, everything from the other teams, the other guys that were doing things well. And Sunday morning, I woke up with a really unique mindset. You know, you can feel it some of these days where you wake up and you just really don't think that anybody's going to take it from you. You just don't. You have that confidence that you're going to be able to go out there and insert your will on the other team. And I definitely felt that. As for, you know, the MVP, that whole conversation, you know, it's funny. So many people have messaged me, and this is the conversation we had before the event, Matty. So many people had messaged me of how well that I had played. And to be honest, in my own mind, I don't think it was that much better than I've played in a long time. It was just a different position. So things are highlighted more. But as far as like effectiveness on outcomes of points, I didn't feel like anything was that crazy. I really didn't. And going into the event, one of the things that I was so upset with in our practices is that we were playing selfishly. And I kept saying this over and over and over. We're trying to be MVPs when we need to be the MVT. I swear to God, I kept saying it. So the fact, and MVT, I mean, most valuable team. So the fact that you guys,
I got that.
some of the listeners, I know you did, Matty. Some of the listeners might not have, okay? So the fact that we get to the finals, we go through, we win, and you guys come down, you're like, yeah, we can't really decide who the MVP was. For me, I looked at Blake, we looked at each other, and it was just like glory.
It was like
in
perfect.
It was just so amazing. It was perfect. It's like, dude, this is everything we were talking about. That's the team stepping up and playing well. The team played good. We had multiple players stepping up and doing what is necessary to win the match. And look, I don't really want to talk about me. That's up to you guys. I appreciate you guys for that, but I'll talk about Blake.
I'll talk about Blake. I got to ask you that question. I just have to ask you that question. But, you know, and Blake will be able to talk about you while Blake on next week. But yes, please talk about Blake. I mean, Blake is getting, but yeah, like he's been good forever, but he's getting to be elite every time he steps on the field. He's a huge threat. If I was playing Dynasty right now, I'm like, okay, if we can't shut Blake down, we're going to lose this game. Just everybody knows that, right?
Blake has been underrated for about 4 years. Massively underrated. People appreciate Blake. People say he's good, that he has like this gear that he can tap into. I have thought Blake is our most valuable player or one of almost every event for the last 4 years. I remember it started in Paris of 2018. Yes, we were playing with the Expendables in the Pro Division, and I was hurt. It was the final event of Paris. I was hurt, so I was coaching the team. I took over the coaching reins because we didn't have a coach. We were just like kind of player coach kind of thing. It was me, Blake, Ryan Greenspan, right? A bunch of us.
I'm trying to remember this. He won an MVP with the Expendables.
That was
what event was that?
Prague, okay, so
Prague?
So that was Prague.
Maybe
that was Prague. Yes.
Yeah.
It was Prague that he won the MVP. Yes, playing in the center.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Paris. Different event. And I was hurt, not playing, and Blake was having these points. He would either go down and shoot not 4, but he would go down and shoot 5 people, or he was the first one dead. I remember Ryan he was so upset. He's like, Marcello, you got to sit Blake. You know, like he's not understanding the game plan. He's not understanding this. And this is no surprise. Blake knows this story. Ryan knows that Blake knows this story. And I'm like, Ryan, I'm not sitting Blake, dude. He's the only one winning us points. No one else is playing that great. Like, I'm going to continue to play Blake. We need to learn how to work with this. But that's kind of always been Blake's thing, is like really high end and then sometimes not so much. But his high end it's so elite. So my point being is that I've seen this with Blake for a long time. And I think a lot of players, even other teams, have really underestimated him and kind of I don't know how to explain it. They just have not appreciated what he can do. And me being his teammate, being like having front row seats to it for so long, Blake is so valuable. He is consistently that guy that is doing things that is going to make the rest of the game easier for you. And the way he played at World Cup, like, you know, it's funny too. Blake had horrible practices as well. I was talking about this on the show because we had Blake on the show. I never get upset with Blake in practice, because look, you have a tough job, you're attacking, you got to push the envelope. So it's going to not work more than it's going to work in practice. The only hope is that you figure it out and then it ends up working more in the event than it did in practice. That's the goal, right? But in practice, it was like every single point, he's just reaching way too far and it's not working, right? And then one of the games, he goes to the same bunker as me on the break. We're sharing that can on the Dorito side, and he's supposed to immediately release up the center, but he ends up staying there. He pushes me out. I get shot. I'm like, Blake, what the F? Like, you're not, paying attention. It's the first time I got mad at him in practice, right? Because I was already having a bad time, and then like I was about to maybe have a good point, and he kind of pushes me out. It's like frustration. But it's funny because he struggled as well. But then come World Cup, when it matters, something clicked. And, if you go through Sunday, I really think I stepped up big in the damage game. I had a lot of really big points in really big moments. I really did. I really felt that there were times that turning points in the match, I really stepped up. The infamous game, Blake really stepped up. There was a lot of points, turning points, big moments where Blake put the team on his back and won us those points, right? And then you go into the finals and, I mean, go back and watch the footage. Like what Blake did through the center, it was masterful. It was what people don't give Blake credit for, which is being a thinker on the field. He's often just recognized as a bully, a bulldozer. He likes to go through and cause a lot of damage, but he was playing some high-level paintball out there, really high IQ.
And that's what's getting to be, if you are playing against Dynasty right now, Blake's creativity, and this is both wins this year, it was just blatantly apparent because Blake also was a huge factor in the win at the third event. And he's just getting really creative, totally. Man. His creative attacking, and him knowing that, like, dude, it's not always going to work out. We say this all the time. Like, dude, 10 out of 10 is impossible. We don't need you to do it 10 times out of 10. Need to do it.
Correct.
Elite is like 7 times out of 10. If you can do it 7 times out of 10, Jesus Christ, dude, that's amazing. That's like you're gonna be a legend. We're gonna win that tournament. If you can just do it more than half, that's great, because we're gonna win enough points to win the tournament or to win those games. So no, it's especially in a very treacherous position like Blake is in. But yeah, I'm looking forward to pick his brain about the way he's been thinking.
He's
about
the attacker of the year, in my opinion. Like, they're doing the Icon Awards. Shout out to Quinn and Icon, Iconic Paintball. If he does not win the Attacker of the Year thing, I don't understand it, because he was relentless and such a crucial part to Dynasty's wins in every event. Doing that up the center. You even go back to the first event where we didn't play well. He was one of the bright spots on the team playing through the center. And then, man, to me, he's a top 5 attacker in the league every time. And Dynasty is very lucky to have Blake Yarber.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And again, considering he keeps getting better and better, I think he's probably going to have a better 2022 than he did in 2021. So that's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah.
before I let you go, we do need to talk about the transition over to JT, because that's some news. The first time I've talked to you about it, actually. What do you think? I mean, obviously, the line, it's like, hey, we're stoked to be with JT. It's a legendary thing, but legit, like, I know that's the line, but growing up wearing JT stuff, like I currently wear push goggles because, I like what Brian's doing over there, and they're some, badass goggles, but I do have some JT goggles and I still love them. Neither one of those dudes pay me personally. I don't really care, but it's just, it is going to be kind of cool to see Dynasty in JT stuff again, if just for some nostalgia, and I think you guys are it's going to be cool to kind of see those throwbacks and what designs are going to come out and whatever it may be. But I think aesthetically, it's like when X Factor went back to JT again, because I grew up with these goggles. Like, we grew up kind of seeing the jerseys and the designs and how the names were on the back, and so it's very appealing to my eye coming up in that era. So it's been cool to watch X Factor rocking all that stuff, and now Dynasty's going to JT. But just in general, kind of seeing, like Dynasty, you guys are doing this fan club thing, obviously with Field One and Alex and Oliver with Hormesis, and you got the Play the Game podcast with Tyler. It's just really cool to see everyone getting out there and kind of getting in the mix and starting companies and making products. And it is definitely it's the era is changing. And so I wanted to get your thoughts. That we could go off on that for another hour. We need to save that whole thing for another conversation. But I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you about this sponsorship switch.
Yeah, I mean, like, Matty, every time I come on these shows, I often get off and I look back and I say, man, I should have been a little more PC is not the right word, but maybe professional or whatever image you want. But I'm always really raw and honest with you, on these, and I think that's
and I appreciate that.
Also a cool thing for the listeners. I mean, look, I have a great relationship with the HK guys. I love the HK guys. Long before I played on Dynasty, I was taken care of by Brandon Fort, Jay and Marky. Like, I've had my entire career almost has had some connection towards them, right? And I appreciate and love everything they've done. They've really, really been dynamite supporters for myself and the Dynasty organization. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not really excited to put on some JT Pro Flexes and get back to the roots of where Dynasty came from. Right? Like, it's pretty damn cool. I never got to wear JT coming up. I was always on the other side there. And you look at the mid 2000s, like that iconic era of Dynasty, and that is them. JT and Dynasty are synonymous. Like, they go hand in hand. And so I think the coming home party is pretty cool. It's pretty special. It's going to be unique. I'm excited to get my goggles. I've been messaging the guys. I'm like, hey, when does my stuff get here? I want to put them on. I want to go play. I've been playing pretty much every weekend since Cup. This coming weekend, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're speaking on Friday. This weekend, I'm going to be the first weekend that I'm not playing paintball, but I hope to have my gear soon. I hope to be able to get out there and the most important thing to me is that Ryan flips up his goggles. Right? Like old school.
I was just saying, I think he needs to flip his goggles, but another thing that needs to happen, actually, because we're having
white bandana.
Yosh's. Yeah. Well, no. So we've been texting with Yosh quite a bit. Him and his beautiful wife are coming down here to San Diego. Got a little party for them. I think you're actually going to be attending this party.
I'll be there. Yep. Of course.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so we've been planning this, and then the news broke, and I was like, oh, this is kind of actually really cool because of all the things we're just talking about right now, with the whole throwback, and I was like, all right, Yosh, but somebody's got to step up and wear a forward baseball cap, because the JT goggle
BC style.
But we all used to do that back before I had the backwards baseball hat. The only reason I went backwards on the baseball hat is because everyone started making their goggles, so you couldn't wear a forward baseball cap. We used to wear a forward baseball cap and no face mask, and it was just like the dopest look ever, and that was how we used to rock it. But the JT goggle, that Spectra is the only goggle you can actually like comfortably wear with the forward baseball cap. So I said to Yosh, I'm like, somebody's got to step up just on general principle alone for the OGs and wear a forward baseball cap.
I bet Yosh will do it. I could see
He
Yosh
said, he's
doing
like,
it.
Yosh was like, I'm gonna work on
I
that,
got
dude.
you.
I got
One
you. And I
event.
was like, all right, yeah. He's like, I got you. I was like,
Yeah,
hell yeah.
I'm excited, man. I think you know, JT is again, it's a nostalgic brand, and Dynasty, you know, going back to them just seems kind of right after, you know, we go through World Cup 2020, the team brings back the throwback jerseys. It's the 20th anniversary, the team wins World Cup. Then we go on, have, you know, such a special 2021. Like the story and the magic just seems like it's there. It seems right. It feels like the right thing to do in a way, you know what I mean? So yeah, very excited for the new chapter. Change is a good thing. I think it's exciting for the team. You know, it's a splash for sure. And we got some other splashes coming your guys' way too. You guys are going to be pretty impressed with some of the stuff that Dynasty has going on. Really exciting things coming. Can't wait till we could drop that news with you, Matty. But the team's positioned really well, dude.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Dynasty always makes it interesting. It's always a good story, and you guys are really good for the game. So continue to just be entertaining and to be elite and to win tournaments, because things are going really well for you guys right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out in 2022. Thank you for coming on the show. Always a pleasure, dude. Just keep doing what you're doing with the podcast. And but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. We're gonna coming over for the Rouse party. I think we're playing some golf here next week, and then maybe be seeing you out on the big game field. I think my wife might be coming out for that one too. 4 Sundays is going to be dropping here December 16th.
So sick.
4 episodes going to be going down. So we're starting off with the first one. Yeah, you're seeing this for the first time. We just dropped the trailer here at the beginning of this show. That will also be online. So yeah, it's looking forward to getting these stories out here, man. You know, you only got 4 days, dude, as a pro to make it happen. It's just 4 Sundays. That's all you have to work with. That's why it's called 4 Sundays, because that's all that matters. So the first one, no surprise, it's Impact, and then the year continues to progress after that. Looking forward to everyone watching that again, going down the 16th. So before we sign off, Marcello, anyone you want to thank? Any last words?
Man, of course, you know, all of our sponsors, you know, JT, that's a new one. First time I've said that. So, you know, welcome to the Dynasty family. Huge thanks there. And really just all the fans, man, everybody that supports Go Sports and is a huge, you know, paintball fan like I am, loving to watch all the film, all the content. You know, we're so appreciative of you guys, because ultimately you guys keep the ball rolling. So, Matty, thank you guys. Thank you at Go Sports for putting on this show. I think it's amazing that we have this platform. This is the elite premier professional platform for professional paintball. And, you know, I hope to see you guys just continue to get, you know, the players on to do these stories. And yeah, you know, if I'm sure I'm forgetting people, I just keep it simple, but everybody knows, you know, thankful for all of your support. So if you guys can check out Play the Game podcast as well, and keep up to date with Dynasty Paintball on our Instagram or Facebook, any page that you can. And yeah. That's it.
I'm so happy you guys moved into the storytelling business, dude. We need as many storytellers as possible. Tell stories. That's the only way to get people to care about anything. You want people to care about paintball? Tell them some stories. That's it. Take them to play. Tell them some stories. Yeah, we got Blake coming on next week. Looking forward to that conversation with the co-MVP from World Cup. And then, yeah, as things,
he better not talk bad about me. I really boosted him.
Hey, you spoke well about him, and I'm assuming he's probably going to speak well about you. But yeah, I think we are going to have Blake on for sure next week, and then yeah, just, you know, Marcel's going to have some kick-ass guests throughout the offseason, and we're going to be bringing you guys the best and the brightest from our industry. Again, we're doing this, like Marcello said, for you guys.
Matty,
really, yes.
Can we do a tactics show?
Yeah. Which do you want to do? Which game do you want to do? Pick a game.
Yeah, well, any game from Sunday. I'm down for any of them. Let's do one. Those are super exciting. I love doing those with you guys. So,
okay, yeah, we'll definitely do. If you really like that, if you said Damage was the one that I would have to go back and look at my notes. I mean, Damage could be a good one. We could do that last game against X Factor. Let me check it out.
I feel like I played best.
One of the games from Sunday.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I feel I played best in the X Factor one. But so if it's a personal thing, I'm going to choose the finals.
If we're gonna do it, we should probably do the finals. We could do Damage, but I think we should do the finals. So yes. So we got some tactics coming up with Marcello. We could do both. Anyway, thank you guys so much right now. Appreciate you guys tuning in. It's going to be crazy off season, so stay tuned for all the madness. There'll be news breaking. We got the Iconic Awards again. Marcel's going to be having whoever gets traded to what team, or not traded, but signs with whoever. It's going to get crazy as it always does. But like I was saying, we're doing this for you guys, man. We really appreciate you guys, caring about paintball. It's a pretty amazing thing to do, and it is filled with captivating human beings from all around the world. And so thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. Marcel, thank you so much.
Of course. Peace, guys.
Peace.
To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4, to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
Hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.